Hi, 1 year in mission teams from around the world. Hello, youth directors, union and conference leaders. It is my absolute privilege today to join with Pastor Gary Blanchard, our World Youth Director, to assist in launching this new phase of 1 year in mission through the online university that will make 1 year in mission accessible to all parts of the world. I am Gilbert Cangy, the former World Youth Director, and it was my privilege a few years ago to be part of the initiation of this global movement. Why 1 year in mission? 1 year in mission is an opportunity that we give to young people to embrace the motto of youth ministry, which is, "The love of Christ compels me." And I cannot go anywhere else in the scriptures except maybe to Luke 15 to catch a vision of what the love of Christ is all about. Jesus was a great teacher, and he did not need more than one stories, more than one opportunity to make his point. And yet, in Luke chapter 15, he chooses 3 stories to make the same point. And the 3 points are this, is that God is in love with lost people. And God came to seek and save the lost, and he will never stop seeking until the lost person is found. And when the lost person is found, there is great rejoicing. So 1 year in mission is an opportunity for young people around the world to get involved with the mission of the church. And how did this come together? It was early. I'm going to give you a brief history of 1 year in mission. It was early in 2012 when our world president, Pastor Ted Wilson, called me and asked me that he would love to see a new wave of interest and a new wave of engagement from the world youth in terms of giving a year of their lives in mission. He wanted to see 1 year in mission injected in the DNA of young people. So I asked, well, Elder Wilson, how do you see this happening? He said, well, Gilbert, this is your responsibility. And so I must tell you that we had nothing to start with, just an idea. How do you launch a global movement with just an idea? I want to tell you that 1 year in mission, this movement that you are joining today is a story of faith, is a story of vision, is a story of people just like you who started from scratch and watched God at work as they committed their lives to him and committed themselves to give 1 year in mission. And so we said, how do we start? So I pulled a few people together, and we decided that we will start by a pilot project. And if this was going to be global, we needed to sell it in a way that would reach the world church. And so we brought together one representative from each one of the world divisions and one from MENA as well. So we had a group of 14 young people from around the world, and we brought them in early 2013 in New York City. But here's the catch. The first pilot project of 1 year in mission was attached to a destination, was attached to a reaping campaign. We used that as a catalyst, but this is not necessarily the model. 1 year in mission is not necessarily attached to an event. It is a way of life. It is a lifestyle. But for the purposes of launching the movement, we aligned 1 year in mission with an initiative that was taking place from around the world, where the church was targeting the cities of the world, and this whole initiative was going to be launched in New York City in 2013. And so we brought those 14 young people together in New York City, and for 6 months they invested their lives in preparing New York City, or the churches they were assigned to, in terms of preparation for the campaign. But at the end of the day, 1 year in mission is the stories of people just like you. And I want to share with you now just a brief video. It's an ANN report on the people who formed part of 1 year in mission, the initial project. Let's get to the video.
A team of young Adventists from around the world is devoting a year to mission service. The group recently arrived in New York City ahead of a major evangelism push in the region called NY13. We sent Tanya Musgrave to find out more.
I found myself in New York with the rare privilege of being able to film people from 14 different cultures. I didn't know what to expect, but what I found was a group made of gold. The dedication I saw was amazing. One missionary had gotten married only 2 weeks before. Another had to leave her 7-year-old daughter. It's a special group. They're doing outreach, disaster relief, and mission work. Essentially, they're training and getting hands-on experience in urban ministries so they can take what they learned here and put it into context back home. Not only are they training here, but also preparing the way for NY13, a huge campaign to show the love of God to the people of New York. There were some fantastic first-time experiences that I got to witness while I was there. One of the missionaries had never seen snow before. He came from Africa. And he'd also never tasted pizza before.
This way.
Yeah. Another missionary had never had an authentic American pretzel either. For sure, there's a lot more adventure ahead of them in ways not thought possible. It's a big job, and they'll learn a lot. There are going to be bumps along the way, because this has never been done before. But there are always bumps when you blaze a trail. God will, no doubt, use them in epic ways, and I can't wait to see how.
As you can see, this is a story about life. This is the story of the adventure of young people who left their countries of origin to come for an adventure with Jesus. Now, the idea was that these 14 young people were going to, in a way, form the model of 1 year in mission. They were going to get training in mission. They were going to get training on how to assess the needs of community and find ways in which they could reach the need of this community. And then, after graduating, after 6 months, they were going to take this model back to their respective division, where each one of them, with the support of their local leaders, were going to set up their own prototype group, their own pilot group for their division, and then this would cascade down the same model to the unions and eventually the conference. But just hear how Erica Richards, at the time, who was the coordinator of 1 year in mission, this is how she explains it.
1 Year in Mission is a new initiative of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, created for the purpose of training young people for volunteer service to effectively share their faith in Jesus Christ and their belief in His soon return. The vision for 1 Year in Mission came out of the church's desire to maximize the interest and passion of Seventh-day Adventist youth for mission and to provide greater opportunities for our youth to directly engage in leadership, decision-making, and in the proclamation of the everlasting gospel. The project is divided into phases. The first phase runs from January to June of 2013. During this time, 14 young adults from each of the World Church's 13 regions and the Middle East North Africa region will form the first pilot volunteer task force in New York City. They will undergo training in community service, communication, and evangelism. In the second phase, 14 volunteers will return to their home countries and serve as key personnel in the setting up of volunteer task forces in major cities chosen by their respective leaders. The process will then be duplicated in the local regions in 2015, and by God's grace, there will be an explosion of 1 Year in Mission participants worldwide. I'm personally very excited to see how God will use these young people in the coming year and beyond. You can follow their stories online at oneyearinmission.org and on Facebook at facebook.com/oneyearinmission.
One would like to think that 1 Year in Mission is a nicely packaged initiative. It is not so. It is an adventure. The plan was for when those 15 young people will arrive in New York City, we will assign them to churches that were already mobilizing for New York City. But when they arrived, it was not the case. And so I want to emphasize right now that 1 Year in Mission is a story of initiatives. It's a story of where young people are challenged to take responsibility, to assess their community, and to exercise their creativity to find ways in which to reach out. I'll give you a simple example. There's about 5 of these 1 Year in Mission people who ended up in a particular town in New York, and they ended up in this big church, and they asked the pastor, how can we help you? And the pastor didn't have a plan. And so they decided now that they would take responsibility for the initiative. And so what they did is that every day they stood in front of that church and asked to pray for people. Now, here in the United States, prayer is kind of very much part of the culture. But of course, you have to contextualize. You have to see in the country where you are, whether praying with people in the streets is something that is done. But here it is done, and so here is these 5 young people every day. They met with people on the streets, and then God gave them an idea. They came from different parts of the world, and they had the idea of starting an international cooking class, and that changed the life of this church. Check this story out.
The cooking class was an event where we just wanted to use it actually to get in contact with community people. At the same time, we wanted also to teach them health principles, but more importantly, we wanted to lead them to God.
If you think about Christ's ministry, he always met people where they were. He fed them first. He didn't try to preach to them. He didn't try to teach them or anything. He fed their need, or he supplied the need that really helped them to preach to them for the most part.
As a team, we worked so hard to get everything ready. Each one of us has a different roles, and we got stressed every Wednesday, but at the end of every Wednesday, we were so happy and we were so glad to see the reaction of the people, how they enjoyed the class, the food, the fellowship, and I think this was our prize.
From week to week, it kept getting better, and so we're really thankful to God for that.
People in Harlem, they seem like they are so much interested about vegetarian food. Whenever I introduced like, oh, today we have vegetarian cooking class and it's international. Chefs are from India and Mexico. They were so much interested in it.
Thanks for coming.
I met a woman who's been coming to our class on a regular basis. She said, I'm a heavy meat eater. She said, I'm about to change my life. My life is about to change. She said, from here on out, I'm going to change the way that I do things because I've learned about New Start and I can't go back to what I was.
There was one lady, I told her, well, we have a health lecture, and then she was suddenly interested. And so she started coming, and she was a little skeptical in the beginning, but she was there every single time. She was one of the only ones who didn't miss any night. And I got to also make friends with her and talk to her.
It was better than I expected because of the countries and the information, the learning about the different countries. It wasn't just vegetarian, it was vegetarian from all over the world.
At the end, our goal was to introduce Jesus to the New Start, and then at the end, we have trust in God. We thought about how can we connect this food activity to Christ.
The best part is we don't have to do something great. You can do small little things and do it with all your heart, and God can bless that little. Amazing.
I come back to the same point that we wished that we had like a nice script, a model that was perfectly packaged for 1 year in mission. But 1 year in mission will have to take the color, the texture of the place of where you come from. You'll have to be as creative as you can in terms of meeting the needs of people. I have a personal story with 1 year in mission to make the point that it is God's vision. And when there is a vision of God in operation, the enemy is always there to wreak havoc. I was not there on January 2013 when these 15 I should have been there to welcome them. But for some reason, a month prior to that, my visa to stay in the United States was not kind of renewed. So I was back in Australia, and 1 year in mission was starting in New York City. It could not have had a worse start. But you know what? 1 year in mission does not belong to any individual. It belongs to God. And those young people had to fend for themselves, and in consultation and with the assistance of a number of leaders in the church, the movement was launched. They got involved in a compassion movement. They got involved in English as a second language classes. They got involved in preparing for New York City, the big campaign, and they also got involved with all kinds of creative initiatives. What I'm trying to say to you is this, is that 1 year in mission is a story of faith. You will get training in the basics of sharing faith, in ways in which you can use your skills to begin a movement for God where He has called you. But 1 year in mission is a journey of faith. where you will be tested, where you will have the chance to incorporate your skills and the way that God has wired you up in service for His mission and for His kingdom. I wish you well. It's been 3 years now. I won't even talk funding to you. We started with no dollars, and yet when a vision is in place, where there is vision, God will call for the resources. You might be stressed right now and saying to yourself, well, how do we fund this? Pray. And people will come out of the woodwork. The church, individuals will come. When there is a vision, it'll go forward. So I wish you well. And I'm joining in with Pastor Gary to bring you all the encouragement and all the prayer that you need to take this God movement to its next phase. So thank you for the privilege. It's been an awesome privilege for me to initiate the movement in the consultation of a whole bunch of leaders from around the world. And as you now join to take this to the next level, I pray for you, and I trust that by God's grace, we will finish the work, and soon we will see Jesus come and take us home. God bless you.